Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be listening to our panel discussion today. So thank you very much for joining us. I trust that everyone can hear us, and thank you for the speakers putting their cameras on. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so talking about the topics of natural ingredients and natural cosmetics as part of Natural Cosmetics Week. So first of all, I'd like to introduce, I guess to begin with myself. For those of you who may not know who I am, my name is Mark Smith. I'm the Director General of NATRUE ASIBL, which is the International Natural and Organic Cosmetic Association. And it's a great pleasure to invite our four experts from the industry here today. First of all, I'd like to invite Dominika Chirek, who's a lawyer and legal advisor of the Polish Parliament and the green beauty expert and blogger. Dominika, perhaps you would like to give a short introduction to yourself, just so that everyone is familiar with who you are and where you come from.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dominika Chirek. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity that I can share my knowledge with you. So I'm a lawyer, and I love natural cosmetics, and I love cosmetics law as well. So I'm an expert in greenwashing, and my goal is to help you to see the difference between the natural products and those who pretend to be natural, which is to combat greenwashing. Thank you.
We're in good company in this topic, and something close to NATRUE's heart in terms of greenwashing and transparency. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jens Burfeindt, who's a scientific coordinator at IKW and a representative for trainings at the DGK. Perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, Jens, and give a little bit of your background.
Yes, hi, good morning to all. As Mark said, I'm Jens Burfeindt, working with IKW, which is the German trade association for cosmetic and detergent products. So not only for natural cosmetic products, but also for conventional cosmetic products. So the whole palette. I'm working there in the regulatory team since more than 20 years. And I'm also a member of the NATRUE Scientific Committee, by the way. And I'm also engaged in the German Society of Applied Cosmetic Chemists, which is the scientific cosmetic chemistry organization in Germany. And there I'm also dealing with the education program for safety assessors in Europe and more worldwide.
Thank you very much, Jens. And next we have Clare Walker, who's head of global regulations and product safety at Holiferm. Clare, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Clare Walker, as Mark says. I work for Holiferm currently, manufacturing cosmetic ingredients that go into cosmetics. I've spent over 20 years in regulatory and product safety. We sit in a number of different trade associations, and I currently chair the Regulatory and Product Safety Group for the European Federation for Cosmetic Ingredients, and work nationally with BCA and on Biotech, on bio-based type trade associations. So it's great to be here and looking forward to having a great discussion today.
Thank you, Clare. And last but no means least, I'd like to introduce Wilfried Petersen, Sustainability Manager at Evonik. Wilfried.
Yeah, hello everyone. Also a warm welcome from my end. My name is Wilfried Petersen, and I'm, as Mark already explained, Sustainability Manager at Evonik. But on top of that, I was and still am the General Manager of Dr. Sweetman's, which is now part of Evonik. And in this function, I followed the natural and organic cosmetics development in the last 3 decades, I have to say. Was involved in creation of the standards from the very beginning. And so natural and organic cosmetics is part of what I feel in my heart, because I love the concept, even though, and we will come to that point during the discussion, maybe things have changed substantially in the past 30 years when it comes to the definition. So it's more granular now what we have to consider, and so I'm still part of the the scientific committee of NATRUE. So this is our daily work to look at all influencing factors and finding a way through the maze of different influencing factors when it comes to the definition of natural and organic cosmetics and their ingredients. So that's all for me for the moment.
Super. All right. Well, I'd just like to maybe give a little flavour to, first of all, why we're talking today, but also the topic in general. NATRUE has, this is now our third year of celebrating the Day of Natural Cosmetics, which this week has become, or this year rather, has become a week running from the 23rd to the 29th. And really, the whole point of what our discussion today is really to focus on encouraging producers, manufacturers, distributors, consumers, all stakeholders within the natural sphere of the cosmetics industry to both inspire and motivate and engage and educate when it comes to natural, sustainable products, and really to kind of embrace this kind of not only the challenges but the opportunities. So this year, I mean, if you look at the general marketplace, we have a natural personal care product market that's worth something in the order of about 13.2 billion in 2023. We have revenue growth that's something like about 4.4% that's projected in 2024. And although we have obviously consumer demand remaining strong for natural products, there are influential factors, notably inflationary pressures, which we've seen over a number of years, and the rising price of consumer goods, which can risk having a dampening effect on consumer capacity to be able to invest in natural personal care products. We have obviously the case that we look at major drivers in the market being things like consumer awareness, availability of these type of products, and obviously with these inflationary pressures, the focus on affordability. If we look at some of the factors, and I'm sure we'll touch upon these in our conversation shortly, traditionally we have the case of hazard avoidance as being a point of gravitation for consumers away from more conventional products, although we can touch on that in the conversations around safe and sustainable by design, for instance. And the progress generally to try and have more sustainable lifestyles, more familiarity with maybe the substances that are being used, and a general sense of well-being when products are being used. Obviously, we want to promote the idea of meeting these demands through the promotion of sustainable innovation. So we'll touch upon some aspects to do with the status of the industry now and where we might look in the future, and maybe touch upon some of the forthcoming interventions at a political level. But we try not to go too deep into this because we appreciate that not everyone will be a regulatory enthusiast or a political animal. So I'd like to kick off maybe with yourself, Dominika, and just really touch upon these aspects of when it comes to consumers in particular, that being the basically the recipient of any of these type of products on the market. Can you comment on essentially what are some of the common misconceptions, misrepresentations about natural beauty products and how brands can work to foster genuine transparency for their consumers?
Yes, I think I'm afraid I have a little problem with my camera. I'm trying to turn it on. I don't know why is it off. Maybe it's gonna come back in the meantime. So anyway, I'll start with those misconceptions and misrepresentations about natural beauty. The problem, I think, is that we still have no legal definition of natural cosmetics on the European Union market. I mean, anywhere in the world. It's just you as NATRUE and other certifications create this definition. And actually, this definition is created by consumers. And this is based on their expectations. So we know that consumers for the past few years would like to have more natural products. They are looking for natural products. They want to have more natural ingredients, plant-based ingredients. And the problem is that once we have no legal definition of natural cosmetics, so we still have, as consumers, we still have to face with greenwashing practices. So, of course, the market is very big, and there are lots of players on the market. Not everybody intends to produce natural cosmetics, and it's okay, but we still have to deal with all those natural, eco, and we call it green claims. The problem is that natural is a statement that has no legal background. So actually everybody can have a natural claim and have all those use green leaves and other claims that pretend to be natural. For example, lots of companies try to concentrate on separate ingredients and trying to make a claim based on those few ingredients, which are natural and plant origin. But it doesn't mean that the whole product is going to be a natural cosmetics. So from that perspective, it is very confusing for customers who are looking for just genuine and natural products. That's not transparent for consumers. So as long as there is no transparency, there is no honest claims on behalf of producers, we're still gonna have a kind of chaos on the market. Of course, when in ideal world, it would be good if a real natural product would be certified. And then this is a clear message for the consumers. But it's not going to look like that. Not everybody are willing to, because it's not mandatory, obviously. So not everybody are going to use a certificate. But on the other hand, when consumers are getting familiar with certifications like NATRUE, they know what you're looking for. They know that this is the point for them. This is a certification they can rely on, and it's very helpful for doing their everyday cosmetic shoppings because it shows them that they can rely on this certification. They don't need to read the ingredient list, which is very difficult for them, and not everybody is going to learn how to read the ingredients list. So I always tell my followers that there are two options: or you're gonna follow certificates, or you have to read the ingredient list. There is no other way if consumers are looking for natural products. But also consumers can put a pressure on the producers if they're not gonna choose all those greenwashing claims, if they gonna put an effort and try to find really natural product, that means this is a clear sign, clear message for the producers that they need to do something, they need to change it, because consumers, when they feel that like they are being fooled, they don't like it. They want honest and transparent claims, and whenever they feel that they've been fooled by buying a product that was meant to be natural and it's not, they're getting angry and they're not coming back to those brands. So that's a good sign for the future, that when we have more educated consumers, then the market's going to change, because everybody is chasing actually the natural trend, and everybody wants to have more natural products to offer to consumers.
So, I mean, if we take the case that there will be a changing landscape, let's say, when it comes to claim substantiation in the future, not within the framework of cosmetics regulation per se, but at least generally there should be there's an aim to level the playing field with various anti-greenwashing directives. I wondered what your thoughts were on what's the line between a kind of purpose-led attitude when we're trying to become, let's say, for argument's sake, greener, more sustainable, versus a kind of compliance-led activity. So where is the line drawn on that, do you think, when it comes to companies? Is there this added pressure, like you were alluding to, from consumers? Where's the driver there? Is it really from the companies, from the consumer, from the regulator? Where do you see that?
There must be a pressure from consumers, because that's the biggest pressure, and that's the only pressure that works. Sometimes we don't need regulation. That's what we can observe in United States when they have very liberal law. It's not only about cosmetics, but in general, Food and Drug Administration is quite a liberal entity. So, but they, on the other hand, they have very well-developed non-government organizations who help consumers to choose cleaner products. So sometimes we don't need special regulations. The most powerful is just the pressure from consumers. So the more educated they are, that's the better for the market. We can observe that the natural cosmetic trend is growing for the past few years, and it's still growing. It's developing even faster than conventional cosmetics market. So that means that this pressure is working. We can see that there are more claims, even for brands that are not seen as natural producers. They still want to be greener. They still want to pay more attention, not only about ingredients, but also for all those environmental issues. It's about packaging, it's about being ethic, it's about supply chain that needs to be ethic as well. So all those elements are just moving towards that we as consumers want to have more natural products. And I think that if we have too many regulations, that's not gonna work. And from that perspective, I know it's very hard to implement definition of natural beauty, of natural cosmetic, natural beauty product, because it would be very difficult to find a common definition which would satisfy all the players on the market. But that's what happened in Germany when the industry just put the pressure on themselves. So we have, actually, Germany is an example for me of a very developed market when we're talking about natural products. Actually, you can find natural cosmetics in every market, in every drugstore, and they don't need to be expensive. They are also just very simple skincare products, but it means that there is the demand on consumer side. So I think, based on German example, we can predict that it's gonna develop this way. And even if we don't implement special regulations, it's gonna continue to change the market into more natural and greener way.
Thank you, Dominika. I mean, if any of the other speakers wish to also provide their thoughts, that's fine. But if not, I would just like to take advantage of Jens, in the sense that you are in the German market, for one, which was just mentioned by Dominika. But we had this talk about the case of, let's say, cleaner products, or seeing natural as less hazardous, and this element of consumer communication being important. So how do you see, from your perspective, in a really important market in the European Union, if not globally, when it comes to natural cosmetics, how the industry can essentially engage with consumers to kind of raise awareness when it comes to this safety perspective, and maybe separate that from the other aspects of natural, which is really about how those claims are represented?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. This is exactly what it is all about, above all for the consumers, what they want, not in the first line natural products, but what they want. And this is what we know from different studies, and which is obvious. I think they want safe and best compatible cosmetic products, which they can use without any concern. So they do not have to worry about anything which is in the product. And well, I think we should also consider that in Europe, in the European Union, we have one of the, if not the strictest legislation in the world for cosmetic products, the most tight regulation which is available, I would say. And what we also should consider, first of all, is that when it comes to product safety and ingredient safety, it is independent of whether it is a natural or conventional product or ingredient. The requirements of the European Cosmetics Regulation apply equally to all finished products and raw materials. And this is, of course, one of the main messages we should convey. And yeah, in the end, it's all about transparency. And Dominika, you have already raised the issue of reading the ingredient list. And I think this is one that we have one important tool ready at the market, I would say, as the industry, which is the COSMA Europe database and the COSMA Europe app, which yeah, has been developed on the German market first many years ago, and now has been shifted together with many European partner organizations on a European level. This is a cosmetic ingredient database which is available in the meantime in 13 languages throughout the EU. So it works on every EU market. And it's, on the one hand, it's an internet database, a web database, and on the other hand, it's a product scan app. And the database and the app, they contain only scientifically verified information on all the cosmetic ingredients, providing the facts about the substances, providing their functions, explanations on their fields of use. And this app provides, in terms of transparency, quick and easy access for the consumer to cosmetic ingredient information. The app is particularly valuable for allergic people who can highlight substances they are allergic to in the app, so they can pre-select their test substances from the dermatologist, for example, and automatically warned if they scan a cosmetic product, if they scan a barcode and the product contains ingredients which they should avoid. So I think this is a great tool, not only for transmission of information, of neutral, scientifically valid information to the consumers, but also to help people who want to, who have to, for health reasons, who have to avoid cosmetic, certain cosmetic ingredients, so the allergic people. This was a big project, and this is, as I said, now available throughout Europe. Just check it out at cosmaeurope.eu. I think the link can be transferred somehow to the participants later if interested, Mark. And yeah, on top of this, of course, IKW as trade association, of course, stands always ready to provide its expert knowledge to all stakeholders, so journalists, media, influencers in the social media, consumers, of course, as well as to authorities and other NGOs. We have our stakeholder dialogue on cosmetics, which we have, let's say, all 2 years with always critical organizations and critical topics where we try to find a common understanding on this specific topic, which is a quite successful platform, I would say. So there are different activities which we drive as a trade association. And last but not least, of course, the cosmetic manufacturers themselves are in the responsibility to provide information on the safety of their products and the ingredients they use on their own websites, for example, and their own communication channels.
Maybe, Mark, just a comment to Jens. I think you can push this link into the chat so everyone can see that. That would be the easiest way to share. And because Mark, you invited us to also comment the remarks of our previous speakers. I want to come back to what Dominika was saying with one historical background, why we still don't have a legal definition for natural and organic cosmetics, even though some people are asking for that for quite a while. There's benefits and drawbacks about that. One of the main reasons why it is good that we don't have a legal definition is that the definition itself has to adapt to latest innovations and things that are probably have not been foreseeable in the mid-90s when the definition or first ideas came up how to define natural and organic cosmetics. So if we compare this time with what we have today, there's a substantial difference in how ingredients are made. So the benefit of not having a legal definition is the flexibility in the interpretation of what does it really mean. But on the other hand, this is exactly also the, let's say, gray zone or the blurry thing that is inviting for the greenwashing that Dominika was speaking about. So my question then to Dominika or anyone in this audience here or in the group is what do we expect from the Green Claims Directive when it comes to, let's say, try to restrict the use and abuse of green claims in the market?
I can answer this question from consumer's perspective. For most of consumers who look for natural products, they don't want only like glass packaging and non-toxic packaging. They also want natural ingredients, and they don't want those ingredients which are legal on the market, but there are some controversies about them. So, for example, it's a group of petrochemical-based origin ingredients. They don't want artificial fragrances. So, if we would like to create a legal definition of natural cosmetic, I know that the market of ingredients is changing, but on the other hand, we can specify some groups of ingredients that customers don't accept in natural cosmetics. They are very similar with NATRUE requirements. So when somebody is going to a drugstore and looking for a natural face cream, and is going to buy a NATRUE certificate cream, so he or she has a guarantee that it has no petrochemical ingredients, no artificial fragrances, no harsh preservatives, which are a concern of European Commission, whether they still gonna cause allergies, so we should maybe limit their concentration, or maybe we have an evidence that it's cancerogenic, so we need to get rid of the market. And that's the same thing that customer wants. So from that point of view, I think it's not difficult to create a definition of natural cosmetics, but I am aware that it's gonna be a big discussion on the market, because still the dominants are just conventional cosmetics, and they are not interested to just put everything in order, because it's gonna cause that they won't be able to claim all those greenwashing claims. And I think this is the biggest problems for producers.
Maybe I can just kind of leap on these points that have been made by in this kind of intervention about ingredients that are not considered in the scope of natural cosmetics by some consumers. And maybe I can come to you, Claire, on this, because in some cases, obviously, when you think about natural cosmetics, people traditionally thought about substances coming from, like, let's say, botanical extracts. But of course, cosmetics are quite complicated, especially if you want to deliver a broad product diversity on the market for the consumer, so that they have the choice of everything going from, you know, the traditional body oils through to the shampoos, conditioners, sun care products, or what have you. So yeah, I wondered, in the case of, like, how do you see the role of biotech developments kind of influencing this directionality? Maybe if you have anything on the kind of consumer perspective on this, but really also if there's a movement towards biotech and natural ingredients in general, kind of what barriers do you see kind of, let's say, limiting or driving access to bio-based products in general? How do you kind of view this market development, the status quo, and how it could move?
Yeah, I mean, biotechnology for me definitely has a huge role to play in sustainable beauty, you know, and this whole natural ingredients trend. So if we think about what sustainable beauty is, you know, it started out a couple of years ago. Oh, it's more than a couple of years ago, but, you know, it was a trend, it's a thing, but actually it's so much more than that. It's a baseline, you know, as Dominika said, it's a minimum requirement for an increasing number of consumers, especially the Gen Z type consumer. You know, if we look about what sustainable beauty is today, and just bear with me a minute, and you know, what we're looking at is not just, it's from the packaging all the way through to the ingredients in the bottle, it's the whole thing. And you know, consumers want a reduced environmental impact. We're more environmentally aware of the impacts that we have on the world around us. And, you know, so we have demands for like recyclable, biodegradable packaging, you know, the use of naturally derived ingredients that are sourced and manufactured, you know, responsibly and as Dominika said, you know, very much ethically. And whilst doing this, we have to minimize that impact on the environment. They've got to be cruelty-free. And of course, you know, back to Jens's point, we have to maintain that high level of safety that we have and those high safety standards that we have, especially in Europe today. So, okay, when you put it like that, it sounds like we want a lot. But actually, biotech developments are already addressing these concerns. You know, we're using biotechnology today to look at alternatives to plastics for packaging. You know, we're looking at manufacturing existing chemicals that we use in our cosmetic ingredients that, you know, Mark, as you say, they're really complex. We can't just get rid of them. You know, these formulations are complex, bringing them all together. And, you know, we can manufacture these chemical substances, you know, using less energy intensive, like processing, using non-fossil based feedstocks, all of which help us reduce our impact on the environment and transition towards like a more sustainable beauty sector. But not just that. What I think the most exciting bit for me, and the bit that I think will make the most difference, is that through biotechnology we can get brand new novel ingredients as well. Okay, they're not what we traditionally think as naturally derived, like from botanicals, just extracts, you know, but they're new ingredients that can really, you know, disrupt this, you know, the sector and the direction of travel and how we look at formulations in the future. And you know, these novel ingredients, they generally tick most of the consumer, this is my wants and requirements, if you like. And you know, very much they're designed with sustainability at the heart of it, in that it's thought about right from the sourcing of the material, right through how we manufacture it, and through end use. So for me, it's a really exciting sector. You know, this week I was really lucky enough to be at an awards ceremony hosted by the BBIA, where Biotech was showcasing what it can do. And it's just, the possibilities are endless, things you would never think of. It's really innovative, and it's like, oh my gosh, this could be really amazing. You know, hopefully we'll see some of these disrupting the sectors in the next few years. But it was inspiring, and it does offer actually a whole new alternative to what we think of as natural ingredients. It was really cool. In answer to the second part of your question, are the barriers to market access, and I'm sure Wilfried will have some thoughts on this topic also. Yes, there are definitely some challenges that we have to face getting these new biotech ingredients to the market. We've got, you know, we talked about standards and standardized definitions. Well, if we take that one step further to things like, you know, test methodologies in safety and toxicology and things like that, you know, they're very much developed and based around more traditional fossil-based chemistries. And it's not always the fact that these can then be easily transferred over to these new, especially the new innovative kind of chemistries that we're making. It's okay if we're doing it, making a similar chemistry in a new way, but not for some of the more novel chemistries. It can be a lot more challenging. You know, we have to think about feedstock availability and even like expertise, you know, in biotech. It's a new emerging growing sector, but are we teaching it in universities and schools? Do we have the people coming through who can then work with us in these sectors? So there are some challenges, but interestingly this week there were two that came up as the biggest challenges and the biggest barriers to all these different companies coming to market. The first makes me really sad, but I get why: regulation. You know, I work in regs and product safety. I love it, but I get why companies feel this way. You know, the regulatory landscape is so complex to navigate. You could rightly accuse it of being confused and contradictory, because I think it is at times, my personal opinion. And in the last 20 years plus, we've seen a massive explosion in regulations globally. And because of that, regulatory expertise can be difficult to come by. And, you know, so for some of the smaller companies, I think, like, you know, you see some of these brilliant ideas coming out of academia, etc. It's really hard for people to navigate that, and it can be quite expensive for them. So that was one thing that came up this week. And the second biggest barrier was investment, actually. So it takes a significant amount of resource to launch a product and bring it to market, and securing investment isn't easy. It's not easy for smaller companies who have to go and look for it, but I think it's fair to say it's not easy in bigger companies either. You have to fight internally for the investment in your product to launch, and know that actually it takes quite a long time to bring something to market. It takes a long time to bring an ingredient to market. Then it has to be proven to have the concept in the formulation. So your return on investment is it can be quite a long time frame. But even though we have these barriers, it isn't, we will overcome, and it is recognized not just by industry, but like, you know, if you look at the Boosting Biotechnology initiative in Europe, which is hopefully going to result in the 2025 Biotech Act, and then we've got the BB RegNet launching on the 9th of December in the UK. These are like people coming together to say, biotech has a future. It can help us. It has a place, and we recognise there are some barriers, but we're going to come together and we're going to overcome them, or try to, at the very least. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe Mark.
I was going to leap in and like ask you, but please go ahead. You want to comment on Claire's point?
Yeah, because Claire already mentioned that I will have my own thoughts on it, and sure I do. First of all, I want to make a point that we have to distinguish between biotech and bio-based, and both are certainly ambitions on different levels. What Dominika was phrasing was, let's say, the old conflict that we had in the 90s between petrochemical-based feedstocks and fossil-based and bio-based. And I think this is already over, because no matter whether a company wants to produce a product or a raw material specifically designed for natural and organic cosmetics, there's a strong tendency to move away from fossil carbons to bio-based carbons. And again, this black and white is not existing anymore, because even using bio-based carbon, you are facing challenges. For example, and palm oil, for example, is a good example for that it's not good enough to say, okay, now we are bio-based. You have to look into your supply chain and pick the right source, and have to be much more specific about the ethical aspects of what your supply chain is made of. And then the biotech adds another layer and another level in that discussion, when it comes to, okay, how do we utilize certain starting materials in a new way to have a broader flexibility in what we then use as an ingredient. But speaking about hurdles, not only the sheer amount of regulatory frameworks, one challenge that we see on the general transformation path from the old chemical economy based on fossil carbon to what is bio-based or biotech, or even in the next generation utilization of carbon dioxide from whatever source, is if that is linked to innovation, and Claire mentioned that already. If you create new ingredients, you have to fulfill, of course, and rightfully so, all the tests, all the things that are necessary to protect our consumers. Unfortunately, regulators like the ECHA, for example, is still insisting in a huge amount of animal tests in that course. And that then gives us a big conflict between two things that we want to promote. We want to promote new ingredients which are more sustainable, which are the next generation. But to be able to do so from a regulatory perspective, we have to pass certain tests. And these tests are also not accepted by the marketplace, because, of course, we want to move away from animal tests to something else. So there is a strong movement in the market also to promote alternative testing methods, which there's a lot of advocacy for adopting those alternative testing methods, but it takes years and years to become official testing methods that can replace the traditional animal tests. And I'm not speaking only about these nasty things like putting drops of whatever nasty chemical in the eye of a rabbit. Animal tests, and the definition of an animal test is much broader. So there's a huge effort of the industry to create and promote those alternatives, but this is a hurdle for innovation, because then a company has to decide, okay, do I want to innovate at the cost of I have to do animal tests, which will then reduce the acceptance in the marketplace, which will damage the economic success of such a new invention. So it's a vicious circle that we have to overcome. And another example of a hurdle is the European Deforestation Regulation, for example, which again is a brilliant thing from the idea to protect the forest globally. But as a consequence, what happens is that you minimize the availability of bio-based material if it does not come along with the proper documentation. So you create barriers, which in some cases may even make some users of ingredients think, okay, then I move back to fossil carbon, I don't have the problem anymore, which is, of course, the absolute opposite of what we want to achieve. Or in the case of the deforestation regulation, okay, we move away from palm oil to coconut, which then requires even larger areas to be covered with trees, so promotes deforestation rather than limits deforestation. So these are the challenges that we are looking for. But generally, the train is running into one direction, which is more sustainable ingredients, more natural ingredients, more efficient production methods of ingredients with resource efficiency, which using less resources of this planet, utilizing side streams and waste materials and bring it to a new life. So these are the trends, irrespectively, by the way, whether this is used in natural and organic cosmetics or in conventional, whatever conventional cosmetics in that sense means. But these ideas and these ingredients have a right in the marketplace and will be accepted because all players, no matter whether they do natural or organic cosmetics or not, have a strong desire to move away from those old-fashioned ingredients, so to say.
I mean, I think that's a really great point about this. I guess what I'm hearing in general is the instance to have incentivization and support for this type of transition from like the industry side, because it's not just like a light switch that you can turn off and on to go from non-sustainable to sustainable, let's say for argument's sake. It's more a dimmer, and that acts as a part of a necessary component of communication to the consumer, so they understand what's actually being done and where the direction of travel is, because it can bear a certain frustration if obviously you're looking for a supply of products. This case of the simple economics of supply and demand with the consumer interest, and the case to obviously support sustainable innovation and have cohesive legislation at the end of the day, so that the let's say the overarching goal of becoming more safe and sustainable by design isn't lost in this kind of conflicting pieces of legislation which actually act as an antagonist to that type of movement. But I'd like to kind of maybe if there's time from the speakers, just to kind of maybe delve into the chat to see if there's anything in there which could be answered, or if there's any further comment before we close, because I see we said approximately 45 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much more time. But we have maybe there's this question as one from Judith on there is nearing of regular and natural cosmetics. It's a question, what will be the point of difference in the future between them, and how do the panelists see this? Who would like to comment?
Yeah, I can comment on that, because as I tried to explain already in my last comment, this gap is of course narrowing, because there is not this black and white anymore between conventional and natural. So I see a shift, because all cosmetic manufacturers, or very many of them, try to become more sustainable, and irrespectively how this is phrased in claims and whether these claims are greenwashing or not, but there is a tendency in that direction. And so therefore the borderline between conventional and natural cosmetics becomes blurred a bit. On the other hand, there's a challenge for natural and organic cosmetics, which is more the definition, how we define natural and organic cosmetics, and in the light of these new biotech inventions. So, for example, there's several, let's say, red lines where there's a discussion whether to cross or not when it comes to genetic modifications of microorganisms, which of course are necessary to really make efficient biotech products. But it might be that there is this kind of red line for consumers for when they purchase natural and organic cosmetics, whether this is part of the process or not. So we have to clarify this point and see what is in the core belief of consumers of natural and organic cosmetics, and how far can we go with sustainability aspects, pushing the limits, and try to keep up with all the other manufacturers in the market who have no limitations in using those technologies whatsoever. So and this is very hard to explain to consumers, because this then goes into the very little and granular details of something which happens somewhere upstream in the supply chain, and there is no real transparency for the consumers themselves. As Dominika explained, they have the chance to believe in the certification. So, and the certification, of course, has to be transparent on all these points, to give the consumer the chance to say, okay, this is really what I want. And therefore, we have to be very careful in how we set up the standards and how we explain the content of what is behind the certification to the consumer. And also to align, to create a common understanding in the marketplace, because there is more than one certification standard at the moment, even though fortunately it is not as diverse as it was maybe 10 years ago, which might be also further be regulated by the Green Claims Directive. But there is the task that we have to fulfill is give this good definition, which is not a legal definition. It's a voluntary standard, but here we have to make clear statements how we see certain technologies that we want to implement.
Thank you, Wilfried. I see just from the chat there was a conversation about the price of natural cosmetics, but this is maybe something that has been discussed. But Jens, whilst you're here, I would like to just ask you to give a comment on this question about animal testing. I know we've briefly covered it, but it's often a theme that comes back, particularly with naturals, because of, well, basically the consumer's focus, ethics is important generally in cosmetics. Are you able to comment on the question from Georgios?
Yeah, basically the answer is, of course, no. Since many years, animal experiments are completely banned for cosmetic products, for cosmetic ingredients to be developed on the EU market. So since many, many years. So clearly no. But what we always have to keep in mind, under the chemicals legislation, there are substances, there are conditions under which animal tests still have to be carried out. And this is, of course, now also one of the goals of the cosmetics industry to try to get the animal-free scenario also into the chemicals legislation. So because cosmetics legislation was one of the first or the first where the animal testing ban has been set up by law, and cosmetics industry was a big driver for decades in the meantime behind this. And of course, we would then also like now to be the chemicals legislation at one point of time, maybe free from animal tests. But this is still a fact. It is still today not to be avoided, cannot be avoided completely. And as Wilfried, I think, has already indicated, there are toxicological endpoints which cannot be completely solved without with completely animal-free methods today. But for cosmetic products, clearly, and cosmetic ingredients under the cosmetic products legislation, clearly no animal tests, neither with natural nor conventional nor whatever ingredients or products.
Jens. Yeah, I mean, I see we have some other points which are maybe focused on safety about, I see titanium dioxide being a natural mineral, and also the case of, there's just a comment, I guess, to what you were just saying, Jens, about that companies still use the rabbit bunny logo. If you wish to comment on that, is fine. If not, we can always redirect these questions to the experts. But maybe I'd like to, because I'm just conscious of time as well, to maybe just give an offer to each of the experts to how they see the future of the natural sector developing, as a kind of final word in terms of how the transition is going, how fast they perhaps see it, and what their hopes would be, let's say, by the end of the decade. I know that's a very look into a glass ball, but why not? This gives us an opportunity to just present a perspective. So, Dominika, what would you wish for?
Oh, I wish for that we could get rid of greenwashing. But that's my main point. But just coming back to the chat questions, the line, where is the border between natural and conventional cosmetics? It's just, I use your requirements. So whenever I see that it looks like natural cosmetic, but it has no allergen in it as a preservative, it's not natural. That simple as that. And another question about price. It's not true that natural cosmetics are expensive. Have a look at any German drugstore, which their own brands are certified with NATRUE, and they are really inexpensive. They're very cheap, actually. And you can have a variety of basic skincare products which are natural and cheap at the same time. It's just the scale. It depends on the retailers. Many own brands of big markets have their natural lines. That means this is the future of the cosmetics industry. Everybody wants to have a natural, at least a natural line of cosmetics. If not the whole brand, they try to have more vegan, which is a little bit greenwashing, more natural line. But that means that's the future, that's the demand of it. We can also observe it based on talc ingredients. There's a big problem in the United States. All those famous products are changing formulations. Talc is not welcomed anymore. And even though it's still allowed to be in cosmetics, this situation might change. And that means that consumers are more aware, and I think there will be more demand for natural products, for more natural plant-based ingredients, and this is the future of cosmetics industry, in my opinion.
Thank you, Dominika. Claire, how would you see things developing from maybe your perspective, but if you wish to give a kind of broader thought?
I would really hope for a less complicated regulatory system to get more of these to market. I believe that we have to get these types of materials to market, types of cosmetics, and it would be great if we could have a less complicated structure. As Wilfried said, everything's well intentioned, just the execution doesn't always make it tangible, or sometimes diverts away from what the true intention is. So I'd like to see us really fighting for that so that we can get these materials to market. and reduce our environmental impact.
Thank you, Claire. I mean, I think that maybe leads into Wilfried, and then I'd like to ask Jens.
Yeah, I see the cosmetic ingredient market moving into a sustainable direction with a good speed. It could be better, but the speed is, as we already discussed, also a matter of the hurdles that you have to overcome. What I wish for the natural and organic cosmetics is actually to spearhead this kind of trend by opening doors to more sustainable practices and being able to overcome their own hurdles. Even though I have to admit, and I said it before, we have to make clear rules for how we define natural and organic cosmetics. And these rules should not be laid out so flexible that consumers lose their faith in natural and organic cosmetics. So we have to make every decision very conscious. But we need to adopt certain things that open the doors for more sustainable practices, which is not yet the case in all cases, especially when I speak about modern biotechnology. This is really, and the other case that we discuss is the utilization of carbon dioxide from atmosphere, for example. So the big question for consumers would be, is it necessary for a natural and organic cosmetic product and the ingredients to pass a biological pathway by growing on a field or being, if you want to become esoteric, have inhaled the Spirit of God by being a natural product because it has been grown naturally? Or is it possible for us humans to take the shortcut, taking the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by ourselves and convert it into valuable chemicals, rather than waiting for the plant to have absorbed the carbon dioxide by photosynthesis, grow, and then we convert this into chemicals? So that is one big question, and I don't have an answer to that. This is more where we have to ask the community if they lose the faith in what they believe is a natural and organic cosmetic. And one element of it is the belief that once it has been grown in our natural environment, it must be non-toxic and it must be friendly to me and my skin. And whereas there is a big skepsis against the chemical industry doing this on an artificial way. And I completely understand those thoughts. We have to figure out which is the right expectation of our consumers. And then we have to shape the definition of a natural and organic product according to this. But also need to educate consumers that it's not a contradiction that when we utilize, for example, carbon dioxide directly, that does not necessarily mean that it becomes toxic automatically. So, but there's of course a difference between the discussions we have among experts, which understand the chemistry, and consumers who decide with their gut feeling and their hearts. So we have to put the right words to it to make it to reduce the fear, so to say.
Jens, what do you think or what would you hope for? You've been in the committee for a while.
Same direction like Wilfried, and it's difficult, of course, to add on Wilfried if he has already spoken. But this is the same thoughts more or less I have. The whole cosmetics industry and the cosmetic ingredients industry is driving towards sustainability. So sustainability is an overarching principle above our life today. Everybody talks about sustainability, and the ingredients and the products shift, and the manufacturing methods shift clearly towards more sustainable processes. And I'm quite curious, to keep it short, how the natural cosmetic products will find their position in future. Of course, this is constantly moving process. So how will the natural cosmetic products will find their place in the ocean of sustainability, let's say, and have their individual statement? Because when I started working with IKW and we talked about natural cosmetics, it was clear. Nobody talked about sustainability. It was clear the product must be as natural as possible. And today this is different, and I think it will be different in future. And I'm curious to follow the further development of this world.
Jens, and thank you everyone for contributing to this talk today. I think this kind of changing face of natural is what sparks a lot of discussion, sometimes like passionate, where it crosses the line between science and philosophy. But I think that this is a really good point to move forward in how the broader aspects of sustainability are impacting us. And essentially how we can lower some of these barriers to increase exposure of these ingredients presented on the market, exposures to consumers, their understanding, their trust and engagement, and how we can win that through industry collaboration in this kind of pre-competitive space. But really how this disruptive innovation can kind of challenge maybe some of the preconceptions that we have about what natural was, versus where it should be going, in order to basically affect this triple bottom line of people, planet, and of course profit, because at the end of the day, in order to deliver any of these products, we need to think about the economic sustainability. So I'd like to really thank Jens, Wilfried, Clare and Dominika today, and for anyone who's also still with us. I know we've been a little bit over time, but really appreciate your questions in the chat. If you have other questions, you can always send them to us at info@natrue.eu, and we can always pass them on to the experts in the room here. If not, I'm sure they're all on LinkedIn, so you can also contact them there as well if you have any specific questions. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you again to the experts, and I wish you a lovely day ahead. Thank you. Goodbye for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.